What does it actually feel like to suddenly be part of the most, anticipated film of the year?
Very, very, very bizarre. I mean, I imagine that what it feels like to me is, I'm sure what I would imagine it would feel like to any other person who works in a supermarket or works, in a clothes shop, seeing yourself in a film, which I'm used to now. But for some reason, because it's so big, it's sort of like, that's me. What? How come I'm in this? I mean, it's a very funny feeling, but also a sort of a fabulous one at the same time.
So how did the part come your way? I mean, did Jim Cameron look in the S to Z directory and look up Winslet, or did you go knocking on his door? I mean,
well, what happened was I was working on Jude at the time and knew that I was going to be doing Hamlet, and I have a fabulous agent who is also a great friend in Los Angeles, and she had read the treatment and thought, wow, Kate's going to like this, and let's see what I can do. So she did a bit of knocking on doors and kind of barging through them. And then I read the treatment and just loved it, absolutely loved it. And then met Jim, and things really went from there. But it did involve me phoning up Jim at one point saying, I have to do this, by the way, and come on, because I know I've got the stuff. And I did a lot of that. I did do a lot of that because I sort of don't believe in just kind of sitting back and waiting for things to happen. You have one life and you have to make things happen. And I tried my best and it seems to have worked.
You make your own luck, you believe?
In many ways, I think you do. I think, you can say, I mean, I say all the time, in terms of my career, I've been incredibly lucky, because I know that there aren't many British actresses, young British actresses that work, in a consistent way, in the way that I have been able to. But I do think that, it is about hard work, and yeah, I think, the harder you work, the luckier you are.
And was Jim responsive to that sort of knocking on doors?
Yeah, he was. I think he kind of thought, because for him, Rose was always a strong young woman. I think he sort of realised that in casting me in that role, he would get a lot of that, and that would come across in the acting of the thing, and I hope it does.
So obviously the story of the Titanic is one of the great tragedies and one of the great dramas of the 20th century. But what was it about Rose particularly that attracted you?
To be honest with you, I don't think there was any one specific thing. I mean, what I would say as a kind of a general thing about her is that she's very much a free spirit underneath all of the, the corseted, lifestyle that she had been living. But and that's very much me, I mean, that's very much part of what Marianne was about, and what Juliet in Heavenly Creatures was about. And that never fails to sort of strike a chord with me whenever I come across a role like that one. The way in which she is so excited about learning, and becoming more worldly wise and seeing new things and travelling, and that's very much me. And she loved people. She just despised the people that she was surrounded by.
Why is she so trapped? Is that the main reason?
I think, yeah, she's so trapped. I mean, she's so young. She's being forced into this marriage because she's a good person, because she feels obliged to marry this man in order to save her mother from having to become a seamstress, as she says in the famous, what we call, corset scene between the two of us. And that is really why she is so trapped, because she realises that, she's marrying essentially a death sentence, because none of that would happen. None of the things that she wanted to be able to do in her life, she couldn't do them.
What is it about Jack then that gives her hope?
I think his free spirit, and his ability to see things and want to see things for what they really are, and the reality that he had experienced in his life was something that she only fantasized about, and I think there were two souls that met and worked, and it was something that I related to. I mean, I've been in that position before myself. I'm very lucky, and I think many people have in the world.
That's a sort of intellectualization about the attraction between the two of them, but there must be more. There's a bit of oomph there as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they fancied each other. Yeah, no, they did. I mean, of course, that has to be that was most definitely a part of it on screen.
You're very careful to say on screen. You're getting asked a lot of questions about...
I am, of course. I mean, Leo and I, we said at the beginning, we said, we both know what's going to happen. People are going to say, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet are now an item, and it's been there in print, and, people can say what they like. We were never anything but, really, really great friends. I'd do anything for Leo, if he wanted me to be in Los Angeles tomorrow and it was possible, I would get on a plane and I would go there. He's very much I sort of feel a part of me in some way now. I mean, it was almost like, I suppose, a 7-month relationship. We knew each other so well. I mean, sometimes we were spending 17 hours a day completely together, and we just had a blast. We really had a very, very good time, and he is so funny, that boy. He's very, very funny, which I think is something that people really don't know about, Leo. He's highly amusing.
It doesn't necessarily happen, though. You can spend 17 hours a day with somebody acting.
And they can drive you mad. I'm sure. I mean, I'm lucky. I really haven't experienced that. I've always had great relationships with the people that I've worked with. But I would have to say that, nothing compares to the relationship that Leo and I had. And we were lucky. And it's something that Jim said, he said, I'm so grateful for that. That was really a gift from somewhere, that the two of you got on so well and were there for each other, because, there were times when he would be, hundreds of feet up in the air in a crane, and we maybe wouldn't even see him all day on the shoot. He would be a voice through a loudspeaker, and he hated that, and was grateful, that Leo and I could talk and keep communicating and keep doing our work, and he trusted us to do that, and that was a tremendous thing.
And you clicked as actors just as much as you clicked as people.
Yeah, we really did. We really did.
Do you know that the second you meet, is there something in the eyes, some electricity?
Well, I mean, I met Leo, and I thought, now, here we go. I'm sure he's going to think I'm a stuffy, Brit that's something out of Four Weddings and a Funeral and is going to start reciting Shakespeare. So what I did actually was I was very observant of him, really, and his sort of body language and his kind of speech patterns and things like that. And it wasn't that I tried to be like him, but I just tried to really be as relaxed and as overly normal as I could be, in order to make him realise that, I wasn't going to sit there and say, the lady doth protest too much, methinks, or something like that. And he admitted later, he said to me, Katie Kane, that was what he used to call me, Katie Kane, I thought that you were going to be like all English, and you're not, you're cool. And that was very, very early on. That was sort of, when we were both doing it in the first week of rehearsals, and that was a nice thing to hear.
The ultimate compliment.
Yeah, because I was worried about it. I thought, God, I'm English, he's American. My perception of what American actors doesn't really exist at the moment, because I hadn't really worked with any, and I wanted to keep an open mind about that, and it was just brilliant. I mean, it couldn't have been better.
And another leading man, in a sense, in your fiancé in the film, Billy Zane.
Yes.
Equally good relationship there?
Oh yeah, Billy is absolutely great. He's great. He's lots and lots of fun. He's a very focused actor, and he loves to talk a lot and keep a kind of a dialogue going before you do scenes, so that you're constantly sort of just talking about the kind of emotional curves and things, and that was great, really great.
A more unusual co-star in a way, although I know you didn't share scenes together, in Gloria Stewart, and maybe
yes.
you'd explain, because I think you met her, didn't you, before filming started?
Yes, I did.
Why was that, and what did that achieve, that meeting?
Well, what happened was I very much wanted to meet Gloria, because I wanted to observe some of her mannerisms and see if I could pick some of them up and try and sort of put them into the young Rose, so that they would make sense in the old Rose. And when she was cast, and I've been told, she was in all the Shirley Temple films, I thought, oh God, how fantastic, I've got to meet this woman. And so I went to her house and we had tea, and this is what happened. I walked in the door, and she started telling me about how she'd been, great mates with the Marx Brothers and things, and I was just out there with a wide open mouth going, like that. I mean, it was like meeting a legend. And she said to me, now, would you like tea or juice or champagne? And I said, well, a glass of champagne. And she said, a girl after my own heart, like that. And so we sat there and shared a bottle of champagne at 3:00 in the afternoon. It was great, really great.
I was going to ask you how you prepared for the role, but I think I know now.
It certainly wasn't lots of champagne drinking. No, it was lots and lots of hard slog and lots of reading of books. And I mean, at first I started off by studying, what the ship was about and facts and figures and all of those kinds of things. And then I thought, actually, it's nice to know, but I don't really need to know that because Rose wouldn't have known that stuff. So then the swing, I mean, I was always going to research the Philadelphian society and what her upbringing would have been like, and doing my kind of usual thing, which is to think about what that person would have been like as a child and all of that. But much reading, and sort of walking around with a very straight back and all of those things.
And you had an etiquette coach. What was that about?
Etiquette, we all had the etiquette coach. She was there. Lynn Hockney was just fabulous. I mean, so wise and knowledgeable, and fun as well. And that was really, I mean, it was, you know, there is such a thing as etiquette, and it is important, especially with the period piece, and especially with something like Titanic, when you had, you know, right across the board classes. So it was an essential element, and she was there all the time.
You've done all that preparation, and then suddenly the reality of the thing is there. You step out onto that White Star dock and see that ship and those crowds. I mean, that must be an extraordinary feeling to walk into history. I
can't tell you, it was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we all, you know, everyone was fascinated. I mean, the makeup artists and the costume people, I mean, everyone would just stand there going, can't believe we're here, can't believe we're here. And, you know, me most of all, I just was baffled by the whole thing. But it was stunning, the work, I mean, the people, the Mexicans and the Americans that worked on the set designs, construction, I mean, you cannot believe the work that went in. It was amazing, really amazing.
And Jim's a real Titanic buff himself, I gather. He dive?
Yes, he did. He did a dive down to the wreck. I mean, I can't remember exactly when this was, but it was certainly now, about 3 years ago, and shot footage. The footage that you see in the film of The Wreck is the footage that Jim shot with his brother when they did this dive.
We've heard stories of the shooting and various bits and bobs, some of them no doubt exaggerated, but what was the reality of shooting the action scenes? I mean, not easy, obviously.
No, the reality of shooting action scenes was, I'm sure, the reality of shooting an action scene on any film. You know, they're hard work and you have to be very concentrated, and it gets incredibly frustrating when, you know, lights aren't working in the right way and squibs aren't going off at the right time and the water level rises too much or too little. Or, you know, so it's very, very tough. But again, you know, I had Leo, I was fine because we just got on with it together and, you know, and had fun with it. But cold water, yes. Long hours, yes. But fantastic team of people, you know. It couldn't have been a more supportive bunch of people to be working with, and that really helped a lot.
Scared though?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I was scared, but then I would look around me and realise that there was nothing to be afraid of because the safety measures that were taken were extreme. And of course, Jim Cameron is a whiz at, you know, water work. He really is. So I never felt in any way that, you know, my God, I'm going to die. And contrary to what has been said and things, never did I really feel in any great danger.
The few audiences that have seen the film all seem to come out surprised in some way by what they see.
Oh, good.
I was expecting so-and-so and it's more this, or whatever. You keep hearing, yeah, it's wonderful, but it's not quite what I thought. What do you think audiences are going to carry away from the film? What do you hope they'll respond to?
Well, I just hope that people connect with the love story side of it, because that's what it always was for me. I mean, it was to me it was never another Titanic movie. It was really something else. And so I hope people walk away feeling moved by that. But I hope that people also feel things that they may never feel in any other areas of their lives, which is something that I always really care about through doing the job that I do, is that you can touch someone in some way, and they may not ever be touched in that way again. And it's a sharing thing. But at the same time, it's tremendous. You know, I do think you feel uplifted in some way at the end as well, because something is settled, something is laid to rest, and you know that woman is going on and did go on to have an extraordinary life and was very, very happy through the things that he had given her. And I think it says a lot about true love, you know. I mean, if you really, really love someone, the strength that they give you through loving you is something that, you know, can always be cherished.
Proud of the film and proud of the work?
Yes, I have to say. And it's fabulous to sit there and watch it and go, God, I was a part of that. And it feels really, really, really great.
Kate, thank you very much.
Thank you.